Here we are back again with our look back at the match between Kamsky and Fide world champion at the time, Anatoly. Were split with Karpov winning a fantastic positional game in game one, and Kamsky coming right back in game two um, to so game three uh, was played, and Kamsky opted for the Queen's Indian defense, and after a 50 move struggle, uh, the game the game was drawn. So that brings us to game four. Gata had the white pieces. I'm sorry. Yes, Gata had the white pieces. Kamsky had the black pieces. Now, remember in game two, Kamsky had scored a crushing defeat uh, in a beautiful beautifully conducted Panov Botvinnik attack, and so he's feeling confident, and he comes with the same variation against Karpov again, who was bold enough to employ the same variation. So here it is, a Panov Botvinnik attack in a caro kann. Now the Karpov's team prepare an improvement over game two, which Kamsky had obtained a clear advantage. All right, that's the question. So bishop d2. So all of these moves were similar. Knight c6, bishop d3. Again, taking on taking on the isolated pawn. Castles, queen e2. Knight f6. Knight e4. And now Karpov deviates with queen b6. So this is his improvement. In game two, he had played bishop e7. All right. So here he plays more actively. Okay. And just just to point out, this d pawn is hanging. The Karpov knows that knight takes d4, knight takes d4, queen takes d4, bishop c3. And the lesson is you have to watch out for these dynamic possibilities in these type of positions. Bishop takes f6 and gives rook a d1, queen e7, queen e4, g6. Yeah, moves like bishop b4. So you have to be careful, especially again in open positions. Isolated pawn position is I mean close to being an open position. So the rules, I would apply the rules to to open positions. I wouldn't say, oh, the position's still closed. It's damn near open because of the it's only the isolated pawn um, preventing two files from being fully open, and the diagonals are open and everything. So basically, it's just a case of being greedy. If you play knight takes d4, I think you can get away with that in this type of position. And as you see, once the pawn is grabbed, the two files C and D files become wide open, and you're just asking trouble. Even stronger than rook a d1 is the natural rook f d1, because I naturally would want to put my rooks like this, but the other way is just fine too, I'm sure. And of course, with the same idea, queen e7, queen e4, followed by bishop b4. So of course, Karpov is smarter than that. He plays queen b6, and he merely applies pressure to the position. a3. Notice again, Kamsky is trying to play in a dynamic style. He's trying to tempt Karpov. Go ahead, grab the b pawn, grab the d pawn. Bishop d7, just continuing developing. Rook f d1, and now rook a d8. All right. So Karpov just briefly notes. He says, which rook to develop first? You bring the A rook or the F8, and his reason behind bringing the A rook out is very simple. Is he piece over near his king side, protect his king a little bit more. Okay, knight takes F6. Bishop takes F6, and it's the same idea as we saw in the last game, where we saw bishop takes F6. The knight on F6 is a great defender and does a lot of work. It's helping blockade the D5 pawn, defending H7, and it defends D7. So you remove that and create attacking chances. Knight takes knight, bishop takes F6, and now Queen E4. This forces some compromise on the black king side. And as long as that dark square bishop is on the board, black is okay defensively there. So of course that makes one of white's goals is to exchange that dark square bishop. So bishop E3. Now the pawn is actually under attack on D4. All right. Now this move not only defends, right? God is bishop E3. Not only defends, but it contains poison. The threat is to play D5. Again, thematic and isolated pawn positions. And this is one of the things that had to be thought about when analyzing this variation. Karpov's team, is this idea of D5 being able to be played at some point. All right. So bringing the queen out early, yes, putting pressure on the position, but now the queen is subject to harassment. So the idea is, can white gain anything from this though? So knight E7. All right. So now the knight is preparing either to go to D5, which can blockade the pawn, or play the move knight F5, which isolates the attacks the isolated pawn. So one move is like more blockading, defensive, and this move has more of an offensive angle to it. So you're playing knight E7, you're attacking this pawn again and attacking this bishop. Of course, the big elephant in the room is what happens on D5. So of course Karpov then overlooked this. His idea is that if D5, now he'll snatch this pawn on B2. All right. And for instance, rook A B1, queen takes A3, rook takes B7, and that just looks good for black. It doesn't look like white has any compensation there after rook A B1. So this is what Karpov was banking on here. Kamsky agrees, and he just plays knight E5. Knight F5. So Karpov chooses a more active continuation. Now, of course, D5 is not going to work here. If it didn't work on the last move, D5, now the knight can just snatch the bishop. So knight takes E3, for example. Knight takes D7. Rook takes D7. D takes E6. E takes, I'm sorry, I messed that up. Knight takes E3. Knight D7. Rook D7. D takes E6. And just simply knight takes D1 here. Overwrite that. E takes D7, and then just knight takes F2. That wins. So knight C4. Queen A6. And to me, this game is fascinating because it's like Karpov is like dancing on hot coals, right? Look at this queen just hanging out in front of Kamsky's bishops like that. But it's like Kamsky can't find a way, or there's no way to really exploit it. All right. So it's very interesting. I mean, he had to really have some concrete variations in his head here. But positionally, Karpov wants to make sure that he doesn't allow the white knight to get the a5. Okay, because the problem is in this position for black, positionally is this bishop. I mentioned it in game two that this Panov-Botvinnik position is kind of akin to like Queen's Gambit decline positions and such, where you have this problem bishop on c8. So Karpov, if given a chance, he wants to bring this bishop to this ideal square c6. So it's important for him not to allow this move, knight a5, which covers attacks b7 but also stops c6 from happening. Alright, so this is one of the ideas behind queen a6, although it looks dangerous. Alright, so he wants to play bishop to c6, followed by, capturing that isolated pawn on d4. So a4, bishop c6, and now queen f4. Alright, and now, again, just looking at this, you see this bishop hanging here on f6. It looks like, g4. Just pointing out, Karpov says in his notes that how this bishop came from being, one of the worst pieces, and now it's the best piece on the board. All right. So, and he says that his main task in the opening has been accomplished. He's completed his development, right, while firmly blockading the white d pawn. So we see that Karpov is the opening is still in flux. The game is still in flux, but we can see that Karpov has more of a handle on the dynamic possibilities that white overwhelmed him with in that game 2. Bishop d5. Now, of course, we have to address this. If g4 here, I'm sorry, bishop d5 was played. If g4, right, trying to get that bishop, then g5 is traps the queen. Sorry, not right here. Sorry about that. After bishop d5, the first we have to address this the knight on c4. So knight e4, knight e5. I'm sorry. So knight e5 was first. But anyway, if he tried to play g4, it would be like a dubious continuation. First of all, you have bishop takes c4. And then you also have g5 attacking the queen here. Actually queen c7, but yeah, queen c7 is the only square for the queen. But then white's position collapses anyway. So sorry about that. Bishop takes. I'm glad I saw that because somebody would have left a comment. Oh, the queen could go to c7, but white is practically lost in this position. So g4 is a bad move trying to win that bishop. And so g5 or just simply bishop takes c4 is effective. Kamsky plays knight e5. Queen b6. Again, dancing around with that queen. And now Kamsky plays this move, bishop takes f5. Now this kind of is like a symptom of something has gone wrong with your plan and your position, because like why would you just want to give up a perfectly healthy bishop like that for this knight on f5? All right, so he's basically trying to create some kind of space for his pieces that are basically being stifled by the bishop on d5 and the knight on f5. Those two pieces for black are just killers. All right, so he's just basically hoping that later on he can exchange the dark square bishop, or basically exchange the knight for the dark square bishop, and then exploit the weaknesses left on the dark squares. He takes f5, rook d2. Bishop goes back to g7. All right. So now in this position, right, again, I've talked about the struggle between Kamsky's dynamic style and Karpov's positional style. So we can see Karpov has weathered the storm, and now look what kind of position we have. We have a position that heavily favors black positionally, and this is the struggle. This is why looking at the matches are great, because you can see this the struggle of wills and personalities. So here Karpov has once again grabbed a hold of this position. Why does black have an advantage? The bishop pair, right? The bishop pair is tremendous in this position. 2, the blockade on d5, isolated pawn. Look at Kamsky's dark square bishop, right? So you got the isolated pawn on d4, the pawn on b5, excuse me, on b2 is not going anywhere. All black's pieces are well placed. White has been shut down, right? His dynamic chances have been stifled. So he lashes out. H4. What else you gonna do? Right? His position is worse. So therefore he has to play and va bank, so to speak. He has to go for it. So H4. Let's see. Rook fe8. The queen came to g3. And rook c8. Okay. So Karpov here is making kind of like natural moves. Now, he looks at it as a mistake and says possibly he should have played a move like h6 here. And he's thinking of and then playing a move like king to h7 afterwards. In other words, me the idea like h5 with g5. So basically just kind of taking some time and respecting white's advances. So here Karpov kind of underestimated that and figured, hey, I'll just play rooks, I'll just take over the file. All right. So this gives Kamsky a little counterplay that he didn't take the time to do that. Kamsky played knight d7. And now Karpov plays queen c6. Knight c5. b6. Get out of there. Knight back to d3. Queen d7. a5. So he's hoping to get rid of some weakness right there. Karpov finds excellent move. Rook e4. Now what are you going to do about that pawn? Right? And of course, like with many strong masters moves, could go all the way back to the greats. Capablanca is the moves often have more than one threat or idea associated. That's why you wonder, you'd be like, man, how did Grandmaster such and such lose the game or whatever? Chess is very much a game of force, where it's like, if you miss, sometimes the opponent's move will have, 2, 3 ideas, right? Not just one idea, because a lot of amateur games, it's just one idea, like, okay, I'm just attacking the piece. Then once you deal with that idea, it's like, that's it, So for instance, here, right, rook e4. So you see the double attack on the pawn here on d4, right? But the other idea is rook g4, winning like immediately. All right. So then the rook can't be driven back by f3 because you just play rook takes e3, right? So this move is very, very powerful. Knight f4. Right, so he had to take time to stop that. So for example, if he doesn't see the double threat, and just rook g4, then all you have now is like rook takes e7, a7, Queen e8. Sorry, that's a mistake. Overwrite that. Queen c7. And white just doesn't have enough here. Say for instance, the knight f4, bishop takes bishop c6, d5, bishop d7, with coming back to e8. So to stop rook g4 from happening, knight f4 is played. b5, okay, and this is an instructive point because this move b6 was played earlier to kick this knight out of the square. So now that the knight has moved away by force, now it's okay to weaken this square because it's not weak if the player can exploit it. Alright? So what was more important in this position is to eliminate white's counterplay on the A file. Alright? So again, chess is a game of give and take. So yes, the C5 square is weakened, and black has to definitely keep an eye on such things. But more important was black getting counterplay, opening up the A file by playing A takes B6. Alright. So B5 is played. Rook to D1. Now bishop C4. So again, we see this positional domination by Karpov in the position. Alright. So he takes away the squares that are useful for this knight. So you don't have to worry about this knight getting back over here because the bishop is now patrolling that area. Alright. The bishop is like a thirsty police officer, just patrolling the area, making sure that knight, looking for that knight around corners and looking out windows, making sure that knight doesn't get back to c5. Alright. Furthermore, we see that the blockade has been removed on the D pawn, but the D pawn can't advance because the B pawn will fall. Alright. If the B pawn falls for white, guess what? Let's just remove this to the side real quick. Now you see that black will have a powerful passed pawn. Rook AC1. And now H6. Okay, so it took Karpov a few moves, but now he realizes, hey, on H5 I can play G5 and I'll secure my king side. Alright. So now his king is protection. His king is protected, and now he can just concentrate on his positional aspects. Rook C3, B4, Rook C2. Notice how the white A pawn becomes weaker now. Rook C6, Rook D1. Rook DC1. Bishop B5. King H2. King H7. Rook takes. Bishop takes. And now exchanging a pair of rooks, it further diminishes white's tactical ability, right, to make any kind of dynamic disturbance in the position. And now he's just left with weak pawns. D4, B2, and A5. They're all targets. Alright. Notice also, and this is what Karpov points out, is that with the exchange of pieces, it further highlights the weakness of the white queen being on G3. The weakness is the fact that it's out of play because there's no attack on the king side, so now it's just over there kind of just cramped up. Rook C4 from Kamsky. And Karpov says d5 had to be played for better or for worse, but that doesn't change anything. d5 is just, at this point, it's doesn't matter. Rook c4 instead. Now bishop f8, and this protects the b pawn, of course. But remember, these top players, when masters, I'm not even going to say top players, but strong masters. Again, the move has more than one idea to it. Of course, the first level of idea is, yes, protect the b pawn. All right, but now it also offers the possibility of playing the bishop to d6. Right, look at the position of the knight in the right. So that's another idea in the position. Okay, knight d3, putting more pressure on the pawn. And this is a trap because Karpov has to make another move. The trap here is basically that he sets is if rook d4 now, rook g4 now, because this is what we have been talking about. Then knight e5. And now there's all kind of counterplay in this position. Right? Say rook g3, knight takes d7. Things get real murky right here. King h1. It's like, whoa. So he sets this trap. Last move before time control. Karpov simply plays the move queen e6. Even stronger was this queen d5. Right, attacking that rook. And if rook c2, now rook d4, which refutes the idea. So Kamsky's move was a mistake. Again, it was a trappy move just before time control. Now Karpov didn't find the strongest refutation, but nevertheless he found a refutation of the idea. And now here, if knight f4, then you just step back with queen d6. And there's really no ways to defend here. If queen h3, then you exploit the fact that the knight is pinned, and now you just play rook g2. And the queen has to give herself up. But instead of queen d5, Karpov found a good move still, strong move, queen e6. And it likewise, just like d5, threatens the move queen takes c4 and rook g4. So it had the same idea, it just wasn't. The difference is putting the queen on a diagonal makes it a little stronger than what was actually played. But again, these guys are in time pressure at this point. Yeah, matter of fact, even Karpov points it out. I didn't notice that. He says I would have certainly played queen d5 if I had a little more time on the clock. So d5 was played, right? Just giving up the pawn. He just took, bishop takes d5. Again, queen takes d5 is good. Rook takes e4. Bishop takes e4. Bishop takes a7. Now, after bishop takes after bishop takes a7 here, if black tries to get funky here, right, and play queen a6, say winning piece by a double attack. Then this move right here is a good resource. I mean, black is still ahead, but it gives some counter chances. Instead, just a strong and simple bishop d6. Remember the idea we mentioned a few moves ago? Well, here it is. Now bishop d6, knight f4, and now it's real simple tactics, right? you got a pin, and now you just win. Knight h3, just some desperation here, and queen e7. All right, so the double again. There's a double attack on the a7 bishop and the queen, and Kamsky resigned. So fantastic game. I mean, rich game. Um, what to say about it? Again, if you look at game 2 and then game 4, right, just back to back, you'll see like just the contrast in styles. You'll see how what Kamsky's trying to do and what Karpov's trying to do. First game in game 2, it didn't work out. Kamsky crushed Karpov with an overwhelming attack, and then the same variation in game 4, Karpov found an improvement. He weathered the storm. Like you can see, Kamsky was trying to organize his pieces for attack. He weathered that and then ended up with a superior positional advantage. So, this is kind of like almost a turning point in the match, because Kamsky came off a crushing win, drew the third game, and then here he had the white pieces again, and he was turned back. Okay, so anyway, that was let's see what did Karpov had to say about this. Basically, it's funny just to throw this in there, and then I'll close. Basically, he took some time to basically criticize the World Championship match between Kasparov and Anand, which I thought was funny. Basically saying, where was the fighting chess? Because there were 8 draws in the first 8 games between Kasparov and Anand. So Karpov says, where was the fighting chess? Then he says, here the first 2 games were decisive, and so was the 4th. So it's just funny how these guys are always thinking about each other. Kasparov and Karpov, just throwing these like little shots, so they're not even playing each other. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed that video. Please like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next game.